Next item is in praise of Lord Shiva, the Lord of Dance. In this, the poet says he dances to the beat of Ta Te and Dadwar. And while he dances, the whole universe shakes. And the Supreme Being dances in pure bliss. The dancers are Deepya Golyala and Lalar Rajpurohit.
Deem takitateyen raduvar, avar nam takitateyen raduvar, takitateyen raduvar, avar tom takitateyen raduvar, aduvar, aduvar, aduvar. Takita jauta dimdi, tarigina daga janu dimdi, tarigina tom, tarigina tom, tarigina tom dim, tadim tagadim, takajanu dimdi, takita jauta dimdi, tarigina daga janu dimdi, kita tagarigina tom, takita tagarigina tom, tatakita tagarigina tom, tateyen raduvar, avatati teyen raduvar. Avar tati raduvar, aduvar, aduvar, aduvar. Andacharacharam engum nadunga ஆதிசேடனார் முடிகள் நெருங்க அண்டச்சராச்சரம் எங்கும் நடுங்க ஆதிசேடனார் முடிகள் நெருங்க பார்ப்புகழுதில்லை சிதம்பரநாதன் பாலகிருஷ்ணன் பணிந்தேற்றிய பாதம் பார்ப்புகழுதில்லை சிதம்பரநாதம் பாலகிருஷ்ணன் பணிந்தேற்றிய பாதம் தீம் ததீம் தகதீம் ததீம் தகதீம் தகஜனுதீம் தீம் தகிட ஜௌததீம் தீம் தரிகிட தகஜனுதீம் தீம் தரிகினதோம் 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 தீம் ததீம் தகதீம் தகஜனுதீம் தீம் தகிட ஜௌததீம் தீம் தரிகிட தரிகிடதும் தேய்கின்றாடுவார் அவர் தேய்கின்றாடுவார் தேய்கின்றாடுவார் அவர் தேய்கின்றாடுவார் ஆடுவார் 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 ஆடுவார்
Since many of you are from various culture, I also have prepared something. This is not as a part of this India Center event, but it's for one of our projects that we have been doing, but I would like to share it at the end of the class if you guys like. So the common festivals that everybody know is just Diwali, Holi, Pongal, if you think about India. But there is something more to it, and the event planning and the event management, if anyone is interested in such kind of subjects as your career goals, I think learning about this project would help ameliorate your event planning skills on finding new arenas where events can be planned, and a lot of event management skills can be applied, and even for tourism students. I'll share it at the last. Now I'll just share, since Surya asked about dancing, I'll share the few basic steps, and I'll just teach few mudras, how to hold, and then we can go to that South Indian culture of exploring the unusual festivals that I talked about. This is just a sample of one of the sections of the basic fundamental steps when the children are doing. I will let you just do a few mudras. Just try it along with me. I will tell you the meaning of it. It's like learning a sign language. So just imagine you're on the other side of the road and you want someone to stop. How would you say stop? That's exactly. So this is called the Pataka Hasta Vinyoga. Single hand gestures. We just say straight, Patakam. You say stop. This is used for showing a river, and this is used for showing it as a flag. And you say no, for firm no to it. Or just say, I'm not going to hear you. See, one single hand you can use for multiple purposes. It is also based on the context and the relevance of context. You use these mudras. The next thing is Tirupataka. If you fold your ring finger down like this, it is used to represent, say, a tree. We represent a tree like this, but we do use both hands to represent a tree. And we also use this for one of the very strongest weapon in Hindu mythology called Vajrayudham. Indra has it. He says it's a strong weapon. And we also use this to denote the um, devas, which means the demigods. So we use this, who is in the heaven, the king of heaven. So we use this mudras. The next mudra, if you just tweak this a little bit and connect the thumb to the ring finger, it is called Mayura. Most of you would have seen Lord Krishna, and Lord Krishna is associated with peacock feather on his head. So you can have Mayura like this, where he keeps peacock. This is peacock. We used to represent peacock. And there is a lord in Hindu mythology called Murugan. Every god in the Hindu mythology has a vehicle. For example, Lord Shiva, he drives in a bull. Vinayaka, the elephant-faced god, he drives on a mouse. Mouse, the one who rides on a mouse. And the one who rides on a peacock is nothing but Murugan. So we represent Lord Murugan like this, the one who drives on a peacock. He just rides. This mudra is, by the way, called Shikara. Shikara, as I told you, it is used to represent a weapon, and it is used to represent gender, male gender in general, and Purusha. And it is also used to represent, if you put it like this, it means it becomes a king. So that it is more of contextual relevance than the literal relevance of the mudras. So initially the students learn about the literal meaning. Just they do Pataka, Tirupataka, Arthapataka, Kartarimuka, Mayura, Arthachandra, Arala, Shukatunda, Mushti, Shikhara, Kabita, Katakamuka, 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 Suchi, Chandrakala, Patmakosa, Sarpasirisha, Mirigasirish, Simmamuha, Alabatma, Chatura, Kangula, Brahmura, Hamsasya, Hamsapaksha, Sandamsha, Mukula, Trishula, Tamarachuda, Urnanava. These are all several single hand gestures, and each one has plenty of meanings. So initially the kids start learning just the literal meaning of it, and they just memorize it over and over again, just like anybody would memorize a sign language. And then as they explore more in the literature, they try to use these hand gestures as a communication tool to relate with the context what they are talking about, and eventually they understand the usages. But if they are going to be very focused on theory, this particular patakam has different use, as I told, like a river, like night, and all those things. So in order to learn every single meaning, there is a sloka. So there are two ways of learning. A practical way of learning, and you can just get experience and you can apply. If you are very focused on theory, you can memorize all the text and the contextual meaning as well, but it'll be very hard that way, because it's going to be so abstract. And only if you apply, you will really experience the relevance of the meaning. So these are some of the single hand gestures. And would you like to try some double hand gestures? So we say Anjali. We say Anjali, which means a warm welcome to everybody, or Namaskaram to everybody. Kapota. You can do this for a Purna Kumbha, which they keep in the oven, or this is also shown to keep something as a secret. Kapota. Karkata. Karkata is like this. We used to denote this to represent a forest, a very dense forest. Or if I show it like this, it means that I'm in pain. I'm in pain. When I keep it near my stomach. When I keep it this way, it means that we are going to join together as a community. So, different meanings. Karkata. Swastika. Swastika is a symbol in general. Dhola, we just keep the hands down. Utsanga is used to represent shoulders or nice arms, triceps, biceps, and all those things. Shiva Linga. So Shiva Linga is used to denote Lord Maheshwara or Lord Nataraj or Lord Shiva. So there are three gods in Hindu mythology. Very popular. Brahma, Lord of Creator. Lord of Protector is Vishnu. So Brahma has designed the scriptures. So how do you represent Brahma as? He has the Vedas. So Vedas in this hand, Vedas. This is Brahma. Vishnu, he has the Shankh and the Chakra. He has the Shankh, Chakra, Vishnu. And Lord Maheshwara, you denote it like this. It's actually this hand for me, but I'm just doing it for the ease of you. So Maheshwara. You represent this as a linga. Linga is actually identification. The term linga refers to identity. And Lord Maheshwara, we denote his identity through a linga structure. If you go to Hindu temples, you will just find linga. That is what is this linga, Shiva Linga. So these are a very few of the double hand gestures. You represent flower with Alabatmam, and you represent a beetle with Brahmura. If you hold like this, two fingers up, the first two fingers connected to the thumb, and when you are going to fold your index finger down, it becomes beetle, Brahmura. So you have a flower, and when you want a beetle to suck on nectar, you show it this way. These are some of the contextual meaning where you combine two hand gestures, an Alabatma and a Brahmura, or you use a double hand gestures by itself or single hand gesture just by itself. These are few places. And do you want to see some of very rare Hindu festivals? Can I move on to that?
As you wish.
All right. And then it's just on a lighter note, very rare Hindu festivals which you might have not heard, or most of the people might not know. Basically, because this is not predominant all over the world, it's in a particular place, and I've taken only South Indian festival because I'm dealing with the South Indian dance form. So this is the South Indian temple. This is how a temple looks like in South India. And this is from my hometown, so it is very close to my heart. This is my hometown. It is Sri Rangam. It is called as Sri Ranganatha Swami Temple. So this temple itself is about 155 acres. It has 81 shrines, 21 towers, and 39 pavilions. So it's huge. It has so much integrated water complex systems. It is a whole functioning unit. Even the UNESCO has termed it as one of the heritage sites to be preserved. It's a very, very, very ancient historical temple. The word temple, I'll tell you how the word temple was derived. We in South Indians, we don't call it as a temple, we call it as a kovil. That is the term we use to denote temples, kovil. But now I think there has been a transformation in the way so that everybody can understand what we are talking about. Uh, I'll talk about the festivals where dance and music plays a very, very important role. One is Vaikunta Ekadasi. Many people might have heard it or might have not heard it. See, in Hindu mythology, the followers of a certain sect, they believe that the Vaikunta Dwaram, this is the door, if you can see, that is called as Paramapadhavasana, Vaikunta Dwaram. It is believed that this gate is opened on that day. And people on that day gets liberation, which the dance, the yoga, everything talks about liberation of the soul, attaining moksha happens on that day. And it is filled with dance and songs on that day, that this place is actually said to be a Bhuloka Vaikundam, which means heaven on earth. And this is a very special seva. It was started by a theologian. He's called as Natha Muni in the 10th century. And this is actually a dance form. When you will see them hold the sign languages that I just mentioned. I'll play the video and you can see a few. This is done only by a particular sector or a particular family, not everybody. If you can see this, see it's called So this is called as Arayar Seva. So it is believed that as per the Hindu mythology, 33 crores of God will come down to witness this event. So it was initially started by this theologian. The processional deity will be brought to a 1,000-pillared hall in the morning of the Vaikunta Ekadasi, the event that I told you, through that gate, the gate of the paradise that I talked about. And then this event will be held. And this is done only by a particular sector of family, and they get trained. And they also recite a very huge literature work called as Nalayira Divya Prabandham. It's not easy to learn at all. And as I told you, there are two ways of dealing with it. One, you can do a thesis, a project, and you can just read it as a literature. But how they learn it is through generations, through their family, and they practice it as a part and parcel of their life, not just like they do their work and then they come back and they forget about it. That is not how they practice these kinds of things. They make it their own, and they make it as a part and parcel of their life. Slide. Another common festival which happens, which people might not know, is called Jyeshta Abhisheka. See, these are all festivals that has happened in the past and that has been happening even now. It is happening even now, but it's not very common. The Vaikunta Ekadasi, which I told, usually happens around Margadi between December, January time. This one happens around June, July time. What happens is that they collect water from the river, from the local river called Kaveri, and in gold and silver vessels, and they come back and they eblute all the icons and the deities in that water. The scientific aspect, which I believe, is that that water would have had a lot of minerals at those times, so they would have collected that water and used it for ebluting the icons and the deities there. That is my belief. And there are other festivals which are even happening here in the US in the mini format, I would say. You would have seen dance and music in Brahmotsava in the temples, where you have a procession of the deity and people dance and sing around the deity. I'll show you this. This is the Brahmotsavam, or this is the Rathotsavam in the Sri Rangam. If you can see, there is a big procession. Here, the Brahmotsavam usually happens for 9 days. Apart from the religious significance, this kind of event actually has a great social and economical significance for that particular region, because it is attracting millions of visitors and it really boosts the economy of the particular region and makes it more of a tourist spot as well. I talked about the word temple that people are very commonly using now. So this word can be dated back to the 6th century in reference to the Roman places of the worship. The word temple is actually a link between the man and the deities or the sacred space. So it's just a sacred space that they are referring to. The oldest known temple is Gopekle Tapi, which is in the Turkey, around 11,500 years back. And they had this concept of animalism. I think they believed that everything had its source of intelligence or a soul, and they prayed to it. So they had that concept of animalism, and you can see that inscriptions there. And even in Egypt, I have seen this temple concept, very relatable to India, where they have priests perform rituals. So it is more of these rituals which have been passed without delivering the intent or the message clearly. So it just becomes a ritual. That is the problem that we have been facing now. And even in China, there are temples. But in China, I don't think there is a deity where they honor the deity. But the place itself is said to have a tranquility or a peace. And even in Japan, they have Shinto temples. And they also honor the spirit of the space or the place. How I see this is when these events happened in the ancient South India, I see this more as a regional development. Like the funds that they got were used for irrigation projects, land reclamation projects, and post-disaster relief and recovery and all such purpose. It definitely had a good impact economically, as I mentioned, and donations were got from, kings, patrons, devotees. And you can see that these temples also had served as a place of Vedic recitals for debate, as a place where art, especially dance and music, were really welcomed. And that is how they gave a chance for all the dancers and musicians to make a career out of it. Almost by 8th century, this started, where they become employers, so that people who know dance and music can not only spread the art but also make this as a living. And this also served as archaeological and epigraphical sites in current day's world. And they also had hospitals and free food for everyone whoever visited the temple. So it acted as a place of charity and for tourism as well. This is how I see that. And these events, whatever events I talked about, these events not only boosted the economy, they also helped spread the literature and the dance form and the art forms. That is why when we talk about dance or music, temple becomes an integral part of dance or music. And even in the United States, most of the temple are practicing it. They are not only a religious organization, but it's also more like an art center, where they give essential importance to dancers and musicians. I thought you might all enjoy this rare kind of events and all dated back to the literature. So if you have any questions, we can go ahead right now.
Lavanyaji, you said, 33 crore gods for those of the audience members who are not from India. That would be 330 million. And another thing is, for example, you said it's called Kovil in Tamil Nadu. In Karnataka, it's called Devasthana. That is the name for temples. So it literally means the place of gods or the home of gods.
Kovil, I wouldn't say in Tamil Nadu, especially in Vaishnava sector. This particular sector.
Sorry, I missed that.
Kovil.
Could you say it again?
I'm so sorry.
So these ancient traditions into which there was so much energy put for preserving them, when you explained that when Britain came and sort of shut down temple life, I mean, what did people do? That was draconian, and I'm just wondering what people did to pivot into another lifestyle until they could get back to their own traditions.
Yeah, it was very hard. If you see the history of this place, what I talked about, there are thousands of people lost their lives trying to preserve this temple, trying to preserve the culture, trying to preserve the literature. Literally thousands of people lost their life, especially during the Mughal attack in this temple, in this particular temple. they did go through a huge cycle, and as I told you, these kind of art forms sometimes are past generations. That is how it was preserved. Had it been a commercial art form, or you just have a center to practice, people would have not been able to preserve this. Since it gets passed on in their family, it was so easy for them to at least preserve it and spread it to their peers, or to their community members. And that is how the art form got reformed and redefined, I would say.
So these mudras, the hand, basically sort of like sign language, which is part of the temple and the religious life. Now, do people use it in their everyday life just to have a little fun with each other? Like, do kids in class go, "Oh, water, let's go and swim after school," and they're doing water? I mean, could imagine that it could be
Yeah.
fun.
Unfortunately, there are not a lot of people learning this. So they cannot go use in the school. But in class, we do encourage them to use. And there are pros and cons of the art form being attached to the religion. As I mentioned, since this art form was attached to this kind of religious or a ritualistic aspect, it was promoted by such temples who became employers and who really wanted to promote and spread the art form in the place in India, I would say. All right. But when we are coming to this Western world, now that the world has been globalized and digitalized, when people are moving and people immigrate to different places, it becomes very hard if you just constrain that art form to a particular religion alone. Rather, if you can see the art form as an art form, it would be more easy. I wouldn't say that the yoga which is being practiced in the West is the actual yoga, but it has been tweaked, modernized, and redefined to how people would accept it in the Western world. I think the same could be done to every single art form as well, so that at least in the future, the art form gets preserved. Because when we talk about rituals, we have so many questions which are not answered yet, because you have to dive deep into the literature even to understand if the questions are relevant, and if the questions can be answered. And only very few sector of people are practicing this literature, and they are working on the literature, and they have a language barrier, because this is said, all these literatures are set in Sanskrit or Tamil, and it's not a language which is in very common use. So when we are translating it into another language, say English, first they should also have a profound knowledge in English literature, which is not possible because they don't have the resources. Even today, many people who are practicing are not experts. They cannot explain themselves in English. English is not their first language. The second thing being, when you translate, you might miss certain quintessence as well, because it's not easy to translate word by word. And many people would not be interested in learning a whole other language just to know the literature. That includes me as well. So there are pros and cons, and we definitely need some reformation and redefining structure, funds, opportunities to even preserve these kind of literature, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it all makes sense. I mean, it is interesting because there have been a lot of arts that have been passed into other countries and kept alive by those other countries. Sometimes that happens. I know for belly dancing, for instance, that's a big part of the current belly dancing scene. How in Egypt it's actually waning in adherence, and it's actually gaining participants. And even some of the martial arts, some of the most famous martial arts, they're practiced more in other countries than in their home countries at this point. So
I,
yeah.
I 100% agree with you. Yeah,
Mhm.
there are so many. I've seen so many Tai Chi classes here. I've seen so many Taekwondo classes here.
Absolutely.
And their kids. But do we really know all the martial arts that are existing? That answer is no. I did not even know a martial art called Kalaripayattu until I was in my 12th grade, which means until I was in my high school. because number one, we didn't have that kind of exposure to martial arts. We were in the arts field. But later, after I realized that it's such a lovely art and it's not being popularized, even when we try to popularize it today, I've enrolled my son in Kalari Fighter because I know that it's being jeopardized and people have to start learning that kind of martial art. Instead of me taking him to a local taekwondo class, I'd like to at least teach him some rare art form, because there are so many art forms. There is a beautiful art form called as Jaltarang, which I did not know when I was a kid. In bowls of water, they play that instrument and you have a beautiful music out of it. So all these art forms really need some reformation or redefinement and enough funds to support them.
A question. I first started studying yoga quite a few years ago with a Jain monk, and that type of yoga is nothing like what, say, Western women do in yoga classes. And you know, it was just interesting because the Westernization of the yoga movement has sort of focused on the outside and physical beauty, whereas, you know, if you started studying with a Jain monk, he would explain that at the temple, you know, these exercises, first and foremost, they were part of a martial art. They were strengthening the body, and as you got more into it, there was the spiritual strengthening. And so that's the thing, when things become sort of physically extracted from the essential source, then they become something quite different. So Western yoga, it almost in no way resembles what I started studying with my Jain monk. And then, you know, I've also done temple yoga in a Hindu temple, and that really was not at all the same as doing it, say, with a Western woman who had trained for 40 hours and now she's a yoga instructor.
What I have observed is that when you're doing yoga, you should never wear such tight pants because it blocks your blood vessels, right?
Yeah.
That is the first significant part. And there is hot for yoga, which is going on here, even in Kolar, as is. When you really want to sweat, you don't want to do yoga. You're doing yoga more so as to relax. You can do a cardio or an anaerobic exercise if you really want to sweat, but you're not going to do. I've seen these challenges of Surya Namaskaram, doing 100 times Surya Namaskaram and all those stuff. I don't believe that Surya Namaskaram should be done that fast if you really want to, ingest the asana and understand what it is. These are some of the gaps that I'm seeing.
Yeah.
But the benefit of this is a lot of people are trying. I think it is being marketed or commercialized in a wrong way. Yes, it needs to be redefined or tweaked a little bit in order to reach larger crowds, but also we have to maintain the um, core of the art form, whatever the art form is. That should be taken care, because in order for commercializing it or branding it, we use wrong symbolisms like hot for yoga to attract people. You know, they think that they lose weight if they do yoga. It cannot happen. You cannot, without a proper diet regime and without a continuous effort. Many people ask me, how do you maintain your weight? I really don't. I really do not. And many people ask me, is it because of the dance form? If you look for shortcuts, you'll never get shortcuts. That's exactly what I tell people. You never have a shortcut. They ask me if you practice a Varnam. Varnam is an integral part of the dance form. And it's a 45-minute piece. If you practice a good Varnam, does it really help you in losing weight? Yes, probably. But you have to be able to spend time every day practicing it. You should have learned until Varnam first of all, because that itself is difficult. You need to put in at least 10,000 hours of hard work. That is another question that I get when they enroll the kids. When will my kid become a professional dancer? At no point, because it's an endless learning, I would say, because you need in a minimum of 5,000 hours of good efforts in order to know the art form and in order to master anything, at least to know about it, and then to decide if you really want to take it forward or not. So 10,000 hours of good practice makes you a good master of the art form. This is science, and I simply go by the rule of thumb of the science. Having put that effort, and then if you start practicing the art form without even after so many, because you have so many other priorities in life. And then it makes you more connected with the art form, and you can try to spread the art form to the other people.
Thank you. That's awesome explanation.
Hi,
I just
Leila.
had a comment. You mentioned Kalaripayattu. Kalaripayattu was taken to China by Bodhidharma, and it became Kung Fu. And then all the other Buddhist monks took it to various parts of Southeast Asia. And then it became karate, taekwondo, whatever. Those are variations of Kalaripayattu. But all Asian martial arts come from Kalaripayattu.
Veena, one question for you. Did you guys have a demonstration of that particular martial art at one of your gatherings in the winter in New York City a couple of years ago?
It was the India Center did not. We had done something called Malkham, which is Indian gymnastics.
Okay.
And that is on our YouTube channel.
Okay.
But there was a gentleman who used to teach Kalaripayat in the Queens area of New York, and he's passed away. He was, a senior citizen.
Yeah.
I had interviewed him many years ago, and I do have the video. One of these days, I'll post it on YouTube.
Awesome.
And you can see what Kalaripayat is. He teaches the basics, and he talks about the entire history, origins, etc. It was a 1-hour interview, so he talked extensively about,
Wow.
the history and how it is practiced, what kind of a gym do they have. It's a very special gym. It's not like a regular gym. They dig the ground and it's underground, like, most of it is underground, and then they have the roof. So yes, I did interview the person, and he used to teach in Flushing, Queens.
Thank you.
What about the footwork, if you can talk about, because most people are familiar with plie and demi-plie. If you could explain, about the footwork.
All right. There are a lot of footworks. Just as you saw in that video, you have Nat Adavu, which means they work on the heel. Tattadavu, they work on the foot. Kuttadavu, they work on the toes as well. I have a short video. I'm not sure if I can share it because I've done it for another other organization. So I didn't get the consent. Otherwise, I would share the special aspects of the footwork. And it is a barefoot work. You can just Google for the benefits of the barefoot exercises. There is a paper published by the Harvard University, and people who are interested might be interested in learning about that as well.
Well, it does seem that there's a lot of knee work involved, so your thighs must become super strong. I saw the young girl.
Yeah, talking about that, you have a good hamstring. You have really good hamstring exercises in this, and you also strengthen your glute muscles and the ankles as well. It is very hard. You experience pain. It will be painful a little bit, and you might not be able to maintain the posture. But as you practice, you build that endurance and the stamina, and from your pelvis, it becomes like a triangle, and it's a good equilibrium position. And I've read papers. I'm not sure if it is 100% true. It says that it conserves energy. So I don't think there are a lot of research works in Bharatanatyam, honest, legitimate scientific research works. That is because, again, we have to go back to the expertise in the field, because people who know Bharatanatyam will not be as strong as in anatomy or biological sciences, or they won't have enough access to university grants and stuff in order to do those I would say kinesiology should be involved if you really want to understand the proper results, the muscles which are really involved, and all those things. There is a good book in yoga and anatomy, though. I think people have involved kinesiology in that work. That would be a good starting point to understand about different muscles and how they flex.
So for the hand, for the mudra, do these exist in other parts of India, and are they similar or drastically different? How does that vary from region to region?
I would say it does vary from region to region. See, for Krishna, in Bharatanatyam, they showed like this, and all those things. In Kathak style, they showed like this. So there are some similarity, but which means that Krishna plays flute. The context is the same. If you're going to stick on to the relevance of the context, yes, you will find similarity. But in Bharatanatyam is more of a straight posture these days, and bent knee, and a lot of importance to the spectacular footwork. And Kathak also has really good footwork, but they don't have this bent knee posture. And that is also an art of storytelling, as much as Bharatanatyam is. And Kuchipudi is another very similar art form, and it has a lot of parallels with Bharatanatyam.
If you could just name the various classical dance forms, just the names, that's it.
Bharatanatyam, Kuchipudi, Kathakali, Odissi, Manipuri, Kathak, and what am I missing? I think there are
Manipuri?
Yeah, I told Manipuri. I think these are the prominent ones which I actually have seen. I've been exposed more to.
So I think that I remember seeing some spectacular festival where there were maybe, I would say it was thousands of dancers participating. And how does that happen? Like, how do you gather so many people? I've seen a couple, I think, on YouTube.
Yeah, it is there. I think they did something like that in Tanjore, big temple. It's more of event management, Pasya, that I talked about. That's exactly why I mentioned the South Indian festivals and how they do. It's more of networking that you have, and more cultural coordinators you have. It all relates back to the same thing. What is the intent of the message of the event? If you have a particular intent, if it is an Aarti Anjali, you want to spread the dance form, you reach out to big dancers, and they have sources or network, and then they spread the word and they get them connected. See, for example, there are several dance teachers in India, as you might know. And if there is a head dance teacher, and if she calls out for say call for artists for 10 different dance schools, each of the dance school, it's very easy to get 40 to 50 students, and everybody should know a basic repertoire like a kautuvam. They pick a song like that and they just put it together. So in my eyes, it is not very difficult, but it requires a lot of meticulous planning. And the intent of the message is again very important, and the resources and the funds also does matter.
Yeah, amazing.
But I would rather appreciate if they spend that funds instead of the spectacle, if they rather spend it to, preserve the art form and to encourage research work in the art form, it would be really helpful.
Is there a sort of like an Indian national ministry that allocates funds for,
Yes.
say,
Yes.
larger dance schools, or how does that work?
Yes, there is Ministry of Cultural Affairs in India, and they do a lot for this. And that is the source, that is the resource that would have, I'm not 100% sure. They would have sponsored for the event that you saw on the YouTube and all those stuff. It would have been that.
Mhm.
But they rather sponsor for the spectacle. The reason being that is more of a community engagement. Only if you make the event spectacular, see, it has reached everyone here. You see it on YouTube and you get impressed by the event. That is the reason they spend on the spectacle, and they don't do it on the research as well, because research is more of a back-end work. And only people who really read it, enjoy it, and then they cherish it and try to, do lecture demonstrations or other stuff. But if you really want to develop holistic artists in the future, they should be places where they are exposed to both research and practice. Otherwise, they'll be just performing artists and they won't be researchers. And it's not a good balance to any field.
What is the very first dance that a Bharatnatyam dancer would learn?
The very first is the position that posture they will learn is Aramandi. And the very first dance form after they have finished their basics will be a Kavuttuvam, invocatory item.
When you were talking about sort of like the leg motion, is there also a meaning set to, you know, the basic framework of the body in the dance, you know, because there's that, the legs like that, and like the arms, are there meanings to those, or those vary with the telling of the stories?
No, I see that more like geometrically. I see that geometrically, and there is a lot of geometry and spatial recognition and a pattern involved with it. And it is highly related to the metronome cycle. You always adhere to, it's just like you have a number system in mathematics, you always have number system in dance as well. You adhere to the metronome cycle. You call that as a rhythm. That is why you say it is so rhythmic, and you synchronize with the rhythm. That is the importance of the footwork there. More than a meaning, it has a particular rhythm attached to it.
So there is actually some type of like philosophy.
Mathematical calculation, pure math. There is no philosophy behind it. It is pure math.
I see.
And that is why you work both your sympathetic and your parasympathetic nervous system in dance.
If you, let's say, study this type, and then the teacher is not going to like that, you hop around and then try to learn the different styles.
Yeah, it is still prevalent, but I wouldn't. See, the problem is you don't have a proper pedagogy in a structured university and a set curriculum for this, I would say. Like you have, see, if I want to do a master's, I have to have so much credits in my bachelor's, and then only I'll be allowed to master's. So it's more of private teaching, and it is not very standard, and you don't have something to define what standard is. So you go by the tradition or by the family, and when you start learning in a particular style, you start attuning your body to that style, and immediately as a learner it would be very difficult if you switch to something, because you're going to restart either from the beginning, or you're going to get saturated and say, oh no, this is not what will suit me. That is the problem which we are facing. But talking about the styles, the concept, the context is the same. See, the tattadavu is a tattadavu. Addition is addition. You can do it in a different way in your mind, and I can do it in a different way. I can do it as 3 + 5, and you can do it as 2 + 1 + 3, or something. It depends on how we do it, but the concept is the same. Does it make sense?
Maybe, because I had a friend that she was doing Tai Chi, Chinese friend, and she said, this is my style that I'm learning, right? And then I was studying.
A lot of unnecessary emphasis is given on that style.
Right, but it's similar when you study it, you can understand it, but it's like a different sequence or whatever.
Thank you. Bye, Basia. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
What's the
Thank
answer?
you. Thank you, Lavanya ji.
What's the mudra for love? What's the mudra for love?
Thank you. For the
mudra for love.
What is the mudra for love?
Oh, mudra for
Wouldn't it be a
love.
hand on the heart or something? The love,
Yeah,
love.
yeah, that is, we don't express, and we also express kinship or friendship like this.
Oh, nice. I like that.
Finger together. Yeah, that is friendship. Right.
Cool. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, Surya. Bye.